Hey, welcome back to Stronger Than Before. I'm Kellie D'Andrea, and I am generally glad you're here today. Whether you've been listening for a while or this is your very first episode, I want you to know this show is built for people who are serious about growth, about doing the work, about becoming the leader, the professional, and honestly, the person that they were always meant to be. Today's episode is one I have been wanting to record for a long time, and I just kept putting it off. Not because I didn't have things to say, but because I wanted to get it right. When you look at the world today, this topic is one that I care about deeply and that I've lived inside for over 20 years, and that I think it gets discussed in a lot of the wrong ways. And we're talking about leadership today, real leadership, not the TED Talk version, not the LinkedIn highlight reel, the actual day in and day out work of showing up for people who are counting on you, making decisions under pressure, building something that matters, but doing it all with integrity. Now, I know that's a big promise. Leadership is one of the most written about topics in the history of business. There are thousands of books on it, millions of podcast episodes, more frameworks than any one person could absorb in a lifetime. So why add to that conversation? Because I think a lot of that content is noisy. It's full of fads and buzzwords and ideas that sound good at a conference, but fall apart in the real world. And I'm not interested in any of that. What I am interested in, what I have always been interested in, is what actually works. What has always worked. What will still be working 30 years from now, when the latest trend that comes and gone, that has come and gone, and the fundamentals remain. I scaled a company from $8 million in revenues to over $220 million. I have built teams from the ground up. I've sat in boardrooms when the stakes were enormous, in one-on-ones with someone's career was on the line. I mean, that's a lot of pressure. I've made decisions I'm proud of, and a few I would do differently. And through it all, I have been a student of what makes leadership work. Today, I'm sharing 10 things, 10 fundamentals that I believe are the bedrock of real, effective, lasting leadership. No fads, no hacks, just the truth, as I have lived it and learned it. This is a longer episode than usual. We're going to go deep today. So grab a coffee, find a comfortable seat, and let's get into it. And before we do, if this show has ever given you something useful, please take 30 seconds to subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with the one person in your network who is doing leadership work. Those small actions mean everything to an independent. And you can always find more resources at my website. You want to connect with me directly and learn about my coaching, my speaking, go to kelliedandrea.com. All right, well, let's talk about what nobody tells you about real leadership. Okay, let's start at the very beginning. And I mean the actual beginning. The place where leadership either takes root or it doesn't. Truth number one is you have to believe you matter before anyone else will. I know that sounds almost too simple to say it out loud, but I promise you it's not. Because I have met so many smart, capable, talented professionals who are waiting for someone to give them permission to lead. Waiting until they have more experience. Waiting until they have a bigger title. Or waiting until the time is right. And I want to say this as directly as I know how. The timing is never perfect. There is no magic threshold you cross where you suddenly feel ready. Leadership begins the moment you make a decision, a real internal non-negotiable decision, that your presence matter and that you have something worth contributing. That decision precedes everything else. And here's something that often surprises people when I share it. The leader who has the most impact on your day-to-day experiences at work is almost never the CEO. It's not the person at the top of the org chart. It's the most immediate manager, the person closest to you. That's the leader who shapes whether you are engaged or checked out. That leader is the one that will make you want to stay or leave, or whether you bring the whole self to work or just show up and go through the motions. What that means is that if you are managing even one person, you are the most important leader in their professional world right now. I'm going to say that again. You are the most important leader in their professional world right now. You mean something. That is a significant responsibility. And it's a significant opportunity. Don't underestimate the size of your impact simply because of where you sit on the org chart. The ripple effect of one of the great leaders at any level is enormous. Now let's talk about truth number 2, because it builds directly on the first. Believing in yourself is where leadership starts, but it's not where it ends. Credibility is the foundation of leadership. And here's something I learned early and have never forgotten. The title on your door does not make people follow you. The org chart does not generate trust. I have seen senior leaders with impressive titles who had zero fellowship, and I've seen mid-level managers with no formal authority people would run through a wall for. The difference was credibility. Credibility is earned through a very specific set of behaviors, and it's earned in small moments. The meeting where you told a hard truth when it would have been easier to stay quiet, or the commitment you honored when you were exhausted and no one would have noticed if you let it aside, if you let it slide. The team member you advocated for when they weren't in the room. Every one of those moments is a deposit into your credibility, and those deposits compound over time. What do people want from leaders they choose to follow? Well, research has studied this extensively, and the answer is consistent. People want leaders who are honest, who are forward-looking, who are inspiring, and who are competent. Notice the 3 of those 4 things of character qualities, not technical skills. Leadership is fundamentally a character game. And the good news, and I want you to really hear this, is that character is built. It is built. It is not assigned at birth. And you can develop every single one of those qualities, but you have to choose to. Truth number 3, know what you stand for, or no one else will. I want you to picture this. A new leader walks into a room for the first time. Before they say a single word, every person in that room is already running a mental checklist. Not consciously necessary, but it's happening. And the question at the top of the list is not, what is your strategy or what is your plan for our team? The question is, who are you really? What do you believe in? What will you fight for? What are you not willing to compromise? What will you do when the pressure is on and the easy path point in the right different directions? People are asking those questions because they're trying to figure out whether they can trust you. And the only way to answer them convincingly is not with words, but with your actual behavior over time, is to have done the inner work of knowing exactly who you are and what you value. I want to be very clear about what values are and what they are not. Values are your mission statement. They are not the poster hanging in the lobby, and they are not what you say at an all-hands meeting. Values are what drive your decision when it's 11 p.m. and you're tired and nobody's watching. Values are what you refuse to compromise, even when compromise would be easier and faster and less uncomfortable. If you have not done the work to identify your core values, the 2 or 3 non-negotiables that you would stake your reputation on, I want to encourage you to make that the most important thing you do this week. Not a meeting, not a strategic plan, that. Because here's the truth. Your team is going to follow your values whether you articulate them or not. They are watching everything you do and drawing conclusions. You might as well be intentional about it. And here's a practical exercise I give to every leader I work with. You want to think back to a moment in your career when you've made a decision that you're generally proud of, especially if it was a hard decision. What was driving you in that moment? What principles were you honoring? Write it down. That is one of your values. Now do it again and do it 3 times and have that beginning of a personal leadership code. I know you're saying, oh my God, I have to develop a personal leadership code. If you understand your values and you write them down, you will 100% get people to trust you and live authentically with you. All right, so now let's move on to truth number 4, which I think is one of the most differentiating qualities of truly exceptional leaders. The best leaders are always looking ahead. Always looking ahead. This is a quality that separates leaders from managers. If you're a manager and you want to be a leader, you need to always look ahead. Managers execute in the present. Leaders live in 2 places simultaneously. They handle today, and they're always thinking about what's coming. What changes are on the horizon? What challenges will the organization face in 2 years that should be building for right now? What opportunities are people missing because they're too busy putting out fires to look up? That's a lot to process. I've watched companies stall and shrink because their leaders were so buried in the operational details of today that they never took their eyes off of the ground long enough to see what was coming. And I have watched the teams that by all accounts should not have survived turn themselves into something extraordinary because someone had the courage and clarity to paint a picture of a different future and make people believe in it. Forward thinking, it's not a luxury reserved for the C-suite. It's a leadership responsibility at every level. And it is a skill you can develop deliberately. And here is how. You want to carve out your intentional time, not optional, not when you get around to it, but scheduled, protected time to think about the future. Read things that challenge your thinking. Talk to people outside your industry. Ask your team what they see coming. Ask your customers. Develop what one of my favorite researchers called outsight. The discipline of looking outward and forward, not just inward and backwards. And I want to add something personal here. None of this forward thinking works if you're a pessimist. You cannot paint a compelling picture of the future from a place of the fear of cynicism. The leaders who inspire people to move towards something, who generate that kind of energy and momentum that makes teams do remarkable things, are generally optimistic. Not naive, but generally optimistic. Not in denial about the obstacles, optimistic. They believe that if a person applies themselves, they can work together. If they refuse to quit, things can get better. That belief is contagious, and you want to make sure you have it. So truth number 5, and this is one I want to say with some real force because it runs counter to a lot of who get celebrated in leadership culture. You cannot do this alone. You have to ask for help. And the best leaders, they don't try. They go and they ask for help. We have a mythology in the culture around the lone genius leader, the visionary who sees what no one else sees, who makes the call that no one else has the courage to make, who drags the organization forward through sheer force of will. And look, I understand the appeal of the narrative. It's cinematic. It's dramatic. It's just not real leadership. Real leadership is relational. It's collaborative. It's built on the understanding that the answers you need are almost never just inside your own head. They are distributed across your team, your organization, your network. The leader's job is not to have all the answers. The leader's job is to create the conditions where the right answers can emerge. So what does that look like practically? It looks like asking great questions instead of making pronouncements. It looks like giving people real ownership, not the performance of ownership, but actual authority and accountability over things that matter. It looks like being generally curious about what your team sees that you don't. It looks like creating an environment where you can say to someone, I think there's a better way, without fear of being dismissed or penalized. It's asking questions and receiving answers. But here's a question I use with the leaders I coach. When was the last time someone on your team changed your mind? You have to think about that. When is the last time someone on your team changed your mind? If you can't remember that information, it might mean you're not asking the right questions. It might mean your team doesn't feel safe enough to push back. Or it might mean that you're surrounding yourself with people who tell you what you want to hear. None of those are good for your leadership or your organization. The leaders who built the most extraordinary teams are the ones who obsessed with what is best for the people they lead, not what is best for themselves. That is orientation. The genuine concern for the growth and success of others is what generates loyalty, discretionary effort, and the kind of team culture that produces results year after year. Now, truth number 6, and this is one I want to spend some real time on because I think it's the most underestimated competitive advantage available to any leader. Trust rules. Full stop. Trust is not a soft skill, and I want to push back hard on that framing. Trust is the infrastructure of the organizational performance. When trust is present, information flows freely, decisions get made faster. People take risks, teams innovate. When trust is absent, people protect themselves. They withhold. They go into survival mode. They comply without committing. They do the minimum required and nothing more. I've seen studies showing that the number one differentiator factor between high innovation organizations and low innovation organizations is trust. Not technology, not funding, not talent. It's trust. They should stop every leader in their tracks and make them ask, what is the trust level on my team right now? And what am I doing or not doing that's affecting it? And here's a piece of this that I think that most leaders miss. You have to give trust before you can receive it. You cannot demand trust from your team and you cannot mandate it. You have to extend it first. You have to be willing to be vulnerable, to give people real responsibility before they fully earned it, and to demonstrate through your behavior that you believe in them. I'm going to say it again, that you believe in them. And when you do that, when people feel genuinely trusted, they almost universally rise to meet it. So 4 behaviors build trust consistently. And you want to write these down if you're in a place where you can. Number 1, be predictable and consistent. Your team should be able to anticipate how you will respond in most situations because your behavior is that reliable. Number 2 is you want to communicate clearly. No ambiguity. No mixed messages, no reading between the lines. Number 3 is you want to treat your promises seriously. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Every time. Every time. Number 4 is you want to be candid. You want to tell the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. And some of that uncomfortable space is where we aren't feeling very comfortable. But you need to be candid. People can handle a lot more honesty than leaders give them credit for. What they cannot handle and will not forgive is being misled. Okay, well now we're in the second half of today's episode, and I want to start this segment with something that might reframe how you think about difficulty. Truth number 7, difficulty is not an obstacle to great leadership. It's a training ground. Think about it. Think about the leaders you most admire, not the ones you're most with the most impressive titles, the ones you would generally choose to follow, the ones who shaped how you think about leadership. I would bet there's almost every single one of them has a story that includes real adversity. A company that nearly failed, a team that fell apart, a decision that cost them dearly, a season where everything they built was suddenly in question. That's not coincidence. Challenge is the crucible where character is formed and leadership capacity is built. You do not find out who you are as a leader in the easy seasons. You find out in the hard ones. You find out when the strategy isn't working and people are looking for you for direction and you're not sure if you have it. You find out when the market shifts and the plan you built your whole year around is suddenly obsolete. You find out when you have the hardest conversation of your career with someone you generally respect. I want to share something that I've heard consistently from leaders reflecting on the most significant professional growth moments. When asked to describe their personal best leadership experience, the moments they're most proud of, the times they felt most fully like the leader they were meant to be, almost every single one involves overcoming uncertainty, staring down fear, doing something that has never been done before in that context. What does that tell you? It tells us that uncertainty is not the enemy of great leadership. Uncertainty is a prerequisite for it. You cannot do something extraordinary in a certain comfortable, low-stakes environment. By definition, extraordinary requires conditions that are difficult. I want to offer you a reframe. The next time you're in a hard season, and there will always be a next time, because there always is. I want you to ask yourself, what is developing in me? Not what is this doing to me? What is this developing in me? Because there's always something. There's always a capacity being built, a perspective being formed, a resilience being forged that will serve you for the rest of your career. The hard seasons are not a waste of time. Mind them, guard them. And let me say one more thing about challenge before we move on. Some of the greatest leaders I've ever studied were not just people who responded to adversities well. They were people who actively sought challenge, who looked at comfortable status quo and said, this is not good enough. We can do better. Let's shake things up. That kind of proactive challenge, the willingness to disrupt yourself before the market disrupts you, to raise the bar before someone else raises it for you, is one of the most valuable things a leader can bring to an organization. All right, so let's get on. Truth number 8. And this one is non-negotiable. Walk the talk. Every single time, no exceptions. Walk the talk. Here's the thing I have observed in 20 plus years of working alongside leaders at every level. Your team is always watching. Not in a suspicious way, in a deeply human way. They are watching because they're trying to answer a question that matters enormously to them. Does this person mean what they say? And here is the uncomfortable truth about that. Your words and your actions are constantly being compared. Consciously and unconsciously, your team is running a continuous real-time audit of what you say matches what you do. And when there's a gap, when you move through accountability but don't hold yourself accountable, and when you talk about work-life balance and send emails at midnight, when you champion psychological safety and then punish someone for a mistake, that gap destroys credibility faster than almost anything else. I've seen it before. A leader spends months building credibility, doing the right things, earning trust, and then in one of those visible moments where their behavior contradicts their stated values, can unravel much of that work because people hold leaders to a high standard. That is not unfair. That's the deal you make when you accept the role. So what does this look like in practice? It means you go first. You don't ask your team to do something you're not willing to do yourself. You don't ask for vulnerability if you're not willing to be vulnerable yourself. And you don't ask for accountability if you're not modeling it. You show people through your actual behavior what the values of this team looks like in action. Leadership is not a speech. It's not a memo. It's not a set of slides. It's not the title. Leadership is what you do consistently when it matters. And sometimes it matters in the smallest moments. A casual conversation in the hallway, how you respond when you receive bad news, or whether you give credit generously or hoard it. Those moments are the ones your team remembers, so make them count. All right, so we're now in the home stretch of today's episode, and I have to save 2 of my favorite truths for last. Number 9, the day you stop learning is the day you stop leading. You should be a professional student 100% of the time. I want to say something that I mean with complete sincerity. I have never been more committed to my own growth and development than I am right now. And I have been in this work for over 20 years. That is not performance. That is not humility for the sake of it. It is a deeply practical recognition that the world is not slowing down. The challenges are not getting simpler. And the leaders who will be most relevant and most effective 5 years from now are the ones who are actually and intentionally developing themselves today. And here's something I want you to hear clearly, because I think it's one of the most freeing things I can tell you. Leadership is not something you are born with. It's not in your DNA. It's not a gift that some people have and others don't. Leadership is an observable pattern of behaviors and practices. It is a defined set of skills and abilities, and skills can be learned. Behaviors can be developed. Practices can be built. The research on this is tremendous. When people practice in genuine leadership development, not a one-day seminar, but sustained, intentional development with real feedback and real practice, they get better. They learn to lead more effectively. The capacity is that there is every person who chooses to develop it. So what does that actually look like? How do you develop as a leader when you are already busy and already overwhelmed? Let me give you 3 things that I have found to be consistently high leverage. First, you want to seek feedback. You want to seek feedback that actually challenges you. Not the kind that affirms what you already believe. The kind that makes you uncomfortable. Ask a trusted mentor, a peer, or coach to tell you the one thing that they think is holding you back as a leader. And then, this is the hard part, you want to receive it without defending yourself. You want to sit with it. You want to get feedback without you defending yourself. Second, I want you to reflect on your failures with the same rigor you apply to your successes. Most high achievers are very good at analyzing what went right. Far fewer are willing to sit with what went wrong long enough to extract the full lesson. The failure has something to teach you, but only if you're willing to look at it directly. And third, you want to read across disciplines, not just leadership books. You want to read history, psychology, philosophy, biography. The leaders I most admire are the most universally wide readers. They draw connections that other people can't because they have a broader frame of reference. That breadth is a leadership advantage. So you want to read a lot. You want to dissect into every area of life. And here is the mindset underneath all of it. You want to stay curious. Treat every experience, every challenge, every difficult person, and every failed initiative as a source of information and growth. Curiosity and humility, the willingness to say, I don't know, I am committed to learning more, are not self-qualities. They're actually hallmarks of every great leader. All right, so let's get on. We're going to truth number 10. And this is the one that ties everything together. This is the one that, in my experience, separates the leaders people follow because they have from the leaders people follow because they want to. Leadership is an affair of the heart. I want to say it again because I think it sounds simple and actually profound. Leadership is an affair of the heart. The leaders who last, who built teams that are fiercely loyal, organizations that endure through disruption and difficulty, and legacies that actually mean something, are the ones who generally love what they do and generally love the people they do it with. Not as a strategy and not as an engagement, but for real. They make people feel seen, not just recognized. Seen. They know the names of the team members, kids. They notice when someone is struggling and they check in. They celebrate wins loudly and specifically because they actually pay attention to what people are contributing. They show up with energy and optimism even when the news is hard because they understand that their emotional state sets the weather for the entire team. You cannot sustain great leadership on strategy and ambition alone. I've tried. Most leaders I know have tried. It doesn't work. You run out of steam. You get diminishing returns. The people around you start to feel like instruments rather than human beings, and something starts to hollow out. But when leadership comes from a genuine place, when you're doing the work you believe in, with people you care about, towards a future you are excited to build, something different happens. The energy is sustainable. The resilience is deeper. The team feels it, and the results reflect it. So I want to ask you something before we close, and I want you to answer it honestly, at least for yourself. Do you love what you're doing? Not every moment of it. No one loves every moment, but the work itself, the mission, the people. Do you feel generally invested? Because if the answer is no, or if it used to be yes and somewhere along the way it became something else, that's an important information and it deserves your attention. All right, so let's bring it home. We have covered 10 fundamentals of real leadership today, not trends, not hacks. The things that have always been true and will still be true long after the current leadership fad has come and gone. Let me walk you through them quickly because I want them to land. So 1, you believe you matter. Leadership begins with the conviction that your presence and your contribution counts towards something. You don't wait for permission. You want to believe you matter. Step number 2 is credibility. You want to build credibility every single day in small moments, through consistency, through honesty and follow through. It's the foundation everything else is built on. 3 is know your values and live them. Do the inner work. Figure out what you would stake your reputation on and then stake it. 4 is you want to look ahead. You want to be a forward thinker. Invest real time and energy in thinking about the future. Is your most important strategic responsibility. 5 is build great teams and give people real ownership. The answers you need are not all in your head. You want to lead like you know, but you want to build great teams and give people real ownership. 6 is give trust first. Build it deliberately with the 4 behaviors, the consistency, clear communication, keeping promises, and candor. You have to give trust first in order for people to trust you back. 7 is let challenges develop you. The hard seasons are not punishment. They are promotions to a deeper version of yourself as a leader. 8 is you want to walk the talk every single time, no exceptions. Your team is always watching and your actions speak louder than any speech you will ever give. 9 is never stop learning. Be a curious student. Stay curious, seek hard feedback, sit with failure, and read widely. The best leaders are the best learners. And then 10, you want to lead with your heart. Do the work you love with the people you care about. That investment, that genuine human connection is what makes leadership sustainable and extraordinary. None of this is complicated. I want to say that clearly that leadership is extraordinary. None of it requires a new app or a new framework or a 2-day offsite. It requires something harder than that. And it's also simpler: daily intention, consistent effort, the willingness to do the inner work before you ask anything of the people around you. That's it. That's the whole game. Now your challenge for the week, I give you one every episode because I believe deeply insight without action is entertainment. So here's what I want you to do next. Pick one of the 10 truths we discussed today, the one that landed the hardest for you, or maybe the one that found yourself wanting to skip over. Those are usually the important ones. And I want you to do one concrete thing this week that demonstrates the truth in your leadership. Just one thing, not a plan, not a reflection journal, just one action. Maybe it's having the honest conversation you've been avoiding, or maybe it's asking your team for real feedback and genuinely receiving it. Maybe it's spending an hour thinking about the future of your team or the organization instead of staying in your operational weeds. Or maybe it's simply telling someone on your team specifically and sincerely that their work matters. Leadership is built on those moments, one at a time, over years, and it compounds in ways that are hard to predict and impossible to fully measure. If this episode gave you something useful, I would love to hear about it. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, tag me in a post, drop me a note on my website, subscribe to the podcast. I read everything, and I mean that. Hearing from the people who listen to this show is one of the most energizing parts of doing this work. And if you know someone, a colleague, a friend, a young leader who is just finding their way, who would benefit from this conversation today, please share this episode with them. Leadership development should not be a luxury. It should be available to everyone who is willing to show up for it. You can find resources, free tools, information about my coaching, keynote speech, and ways to connect with me directly at kelliedandrea.com, or subscribe to Stronger Than Before newsletter. And while you're there, I send content every week designed to help you grow as a leader and as a person. So until next time, keep doing the work, keep showing up, keep choosing to lead with credibility, with courage, and with your whole heart. I'm Kellie D'Andrea, and this is Stronger Than Before. And I'll see you next time.